It was a crisp fall Thursday in my cozy little bookstore on the edge of Maple Street in suburban Portland, Oregon, where the rain patters like a gentle reminder and coffee shops outnumber stoplights. I'm Jordan Hayes, 37, with calloused hands from flipping pages and a perpetual scent of ink and fresh ground beans clinging to my flannel shirts. I live in the apartment upstairs, above the old record store that spins vinyl classics till dusk. My days are rhythmic. Organizing shelves by genre, brewing dark roasts to chase away the Pacific Northwest chill, and patching up the worn spots in life that books can't quite fix. Long after closing, the air still hummed with the ghost of turning pages and steamed milk as I balanced the ledger, fingers stained from unpacking a shipment of vintage mysteries. The door chime tinkled softly, like a shy apology cutting through the quiet. There she was, hovering in the threshold, her navy hoodie damp from the drizzle, auburn hair pulled into a messy ponytail. Her eyes were puffy, the kind of raw that lingers after a storm of tears. Emily. I'd seen her around at the farmer's market or grabbing lattes down the block, but never like this, fragile as a dog-eared page. "Sorry," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to barge in so late." "Hey," I said evenly, setting down my pen. "No worries. Need help finding something?" She shook her head, hugging herself tighter. "Not really, I just can't go home yet. Mind if I hang out for a minute?" Some moments don't need questions. I nodded toward the worn leather armchair by the poetry section. "Make yourself comfortable? Want some herbal tea?" She gave a small nod, her shoulders easing just a fraction. I fixed a mug of peppermint from the back kettle, stirred in a drizzle of local honey, and handed it over carefully. Up close, she looked mid-30s, carrying a weight that made her seem both younger and older. She stared into the steam like it held answers, her breaths shallow and ragged. I busied myself restacking biographies, listening to the tick of the wall clock, the faint hum of the fridge, and her occasional sniffle. "That your pickup truck out front?" she asked after a while, her voice steadier. "The blue one?" "Yeah, it's a relic. My dad had one like it. Said it could haul anything if you believed in it enough." I chuckled softly. "Sounds about right." Her lips twitched into a faint smile, her gaze wandering the room. Ladder-back chairs, nooks piled with quilts, faded posters of Hemingway and Angelo I'd hung myself. "This place feels safe." "That's the idea. Low lights, no rush." She nodded, and we let the scent of rain-soaked earth and old bindings wrap around us. Outside, street lamps flickered on puddles like scattered stars. "Should I call someone? Friend? Uber?" She sipped slowly. "I'd rather not deal with the explanations right now." "Fair enough. Take your time." The overhead fan spun lazily. She drank more calmly. "I think I've seen you at the market. Jordan, right? You suggested that sci-fi series to my sister last summer. She raved about it." "Guilty as charged. I aim for the good stuff." A quiet laugh escaped her, loosening the air. I passed her a box of tissues without fanfare. Refill. Water. Silence. This is just what I needed. She took a deep breath, her posture unwinding a bit. I tweaked the display of bestsellers for tomorrow, giving her space. By 9:30, she rose, smoothing her hoodie. "Thanks for not kicking me out. You weren't in the way. Come back any time." "Really?" At the door, the chime ringing softly, she paused. "Maybe I will." She slipped into the night. I watched the empty street, the lamp throwing long shadows across the floor. As I straightened the last shelf and flipped the sign to closed, the shop felt different, warmer, like it had been waiting for something. Locking up against the mist, a distant train whistle echoed. Why my door, of all places? It felt like fate, the kind you read about but never expect. The next morning broke with that Oregon fog, routine kicking in, unlocking at 8, blending aromas of coffee and crisp air. While alphabetizing the romance aisle, the door opened with purpose. Emily again, hoodie swapped for a sweater, hair neater but eyes still shadowed. "Morning," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. "Didn't expect you back so soon." "Hope it's okay?" She stepped in, scanning the familiar stacks and plush rugs. She settled on a stool at the counter, fingers knotted. "I didn't say thanks properly yesterday, for not prying." "No thanks needed. But if you want to talk..." She exhaled, the words tumbling out like they'd been bottled too long. "It's my husband," she said, her tone edged with exhaustion. "We live together, but I'm invisible. I speak up, we fight. I stay quiet. It's like I'm not there. It's suffocating." I leaned on the counter, rag forgotten. No tears today, just a fierce grip on control. He tunes me out, dismisses my ideas. I'm losing myself in our own house. I kept it real. "I get it. Was married once. She left because I was just a bookstore guy. No big dreams, no excitement." It stung, realizing I wasn't enough. Her eyes widened. "That's rough." It was, but she was right in a way. I love the stories, the steady quiet. Still hurt like hell. She nodded, our aches bridging the gap. I wonder if I should have changed, been less opinionated, more agreeable. Or just faded away. Her eyes shimmered, but she held it together. "Do you ever feel like you're only alive in your own little world?" "Not the world, this town. Chasing big things, but I'm happy tending tails. Wrong speed for some." A small smile broke through. I poured fresh tea. She cupped it for warmth. Talk flowed in bits. Her graphic design gigs amid chaos, neighborhood news, nothing heavy. But the way she looked at the books, the cozy corners, it was like this place gave her what home couldn't: space to breathe, to exist. Customers came and went. She fell quiet, sweater drawn close, waiting for the lull. Not hiding, just being. She wandered over, picking up a fountain pen from the counter like it was treasure. "Know every story in here?" "Pretty much." She grinned faintly. "I can barely finish one." "You'd surprise yourself." The smile lingered. She set it down gently. As she left, no rush. "Thanks for the sanctuary. It's the only place I feel seen." The chime faded. I pondered her words, how proximity can blind you. She needed to know she mattered. By the end of that week, her visits wove into the shop's quiet rhythm like a favorite bookmark you keep finding. Afternoons brought the navy sweater, sometimes with eyes tired from late nights sketching logos for freelance clients, other times sparkling with that tentative light of someone reclaiming air. The silence between us shifted. Not heavy anymore, but inviting, like the pause before a good plot twist. On Friday, as the sun dipped low and painted the windows in honeyed streaks, she pushed through the door with a paper bag from the corner deli. "Figured you skipped lunch again," she said, setting it on the counter with a sheepish grin. "Turkey clubs and those kettle chips you like." I raised an eyebrow, but my stomach betrayed me with a rumble. "You didn't have to." "Wanted to." Call it payback for the tea. We perched on the mismatched stools behind the register, unwrapping sandwiches amid the scent of mustard and aged paperbacks. It felt easy, this shared meal. No awkward silences, just the crinkle of foil and her stories about botched client meetings that had me chuckling over crumbs. She dabbed at my sleeve with a napkin, her touch light as a whisper. "You've got mustard right there, Hemingway." I laughed, the sound surprising me in its fullness. This shop, it's like stepping into someone else's dream. Mine's all deadlines and dirty dishes. I glanced around at the clutter. Teetering stacks of indie presses, a threadbare Persian rug I'd scored at a garage sale in Beaverton, ledgers scribbled with my looping handwriting. Nothing fancy, just books and caffeine. It's magic, Jordan. Alive in a way my apartment isn't. You listen, really listen, without cutting in or telling me I'm overreacting. The words hit deeper than I expected. I'd always thought of the store as my anchor, a place to lose myself in other people's words when mine fell short. But hearing her say it, made me see it fresh, like rediscovering a spine-cracked favorite. She lingered that afternoon, helping me unpack a box of graphic novels without being asked. Her hands moved with the same careful grace she brought to her designs, fingers nimble, sorting titles into neat piles. A curl escaped her ponytail, brushing her cheek as she knelt by the low shelf, and I caught myself watching, the way her focus softened the lines around her eyes. "You're a natural at this," I said, handing her a stack of Neil Gaiman. "Perfect for the fantasy nook." "Luck," she replied, but her smile was real, cheeks flushing pink. We worked side by side until the light faded to twilight, the only sounds our quiet chatter and the rustle of dust jackets. For the first time in years, the shop didn't feel like a solo act. As dusk settled, she leaned against the counter, voice dropping low. "People probably think I'm weird, haunting your store like this. Let 'em talk. Small towns run on gossip anyway, keeps the coffee hot." Her gaze held mine a beat too long, searching, and I felt the air thicken, charged like the moment before thunder. "What are you really looking for here, Emily? Not from him, not from the world? From you?" She swallowed, tracing the grain of the wood with her fingertip. "To feel like I count. Like I'm more than background noise. With you, I do." The honesty pinned me in place, her words echoing the hollow I'd carried since my divorce. I polished a glass display case, the cloth moving in slow circles, buying time. She gathered her things eventually, the bag of leftovers I'd insisted on swinging from her hand. "See you tomorrow?" "Count on it." The door chimed her goodbye, leaving the shop humming with her absence, that half-empty mug on the counter a ghost of warmth. Staring at the spot where she'd stood, I locked up, wondering how close you can orbit someone before gravity pulls you in, or fear shoves you back. Monday rolled in with a downpour that turned Maple Street into a shimmering river, the kind of rain that soaks through your jacket and straight to your bones. Business was slow till closing. I dimmed the lights early, the glow from the single desk lamp carving shadows across the sci-fi stacks. That's when the door flew open with a bang that rattled the bell. Emily stumbled in, face pale as milk, lips pressed thin. Right behind her loomed a guy built like a linebacker, jaw set in a scowl that screamed trouble. Her husband had to be, from the way his hand gripped her elbow like a vice. The air turned thick, electric with unspoken storms. She froze halfway to her armchair. He barreled forward, voice a low growl. "So this is where you've been wasting our days? Hold up with this geek?" I set the rag down slow, deliberate, heart pounding, but voice steady. "We're closed, man. Time to go." "Don't play dumb. I know what's going on here." Emily's voice cracked, small but fierce. "Nothing's going on, Tom. I just needed space." He whirled on her, eyes blazing. "Space? You're embarrassing us. Whole neighborhood sees you mooning over this book nerd. That better than me?" Heat rose in my chest, fists clenching at my sides, but her wide-eyed plea stopped me cold. She didn't need a brawl. She needed calm, a lifeline. "I don't know what you think this is," I said even, "but it's not my marriage. That's on you two." He barked a laugh, stepping closer, close enough I could smell the whiskey on his breath. "Stay in your lane, buddy. Take it outside. This ain't the place." My knuckles whitened, his face reddened, veins bulging, poised for a swing. Then Emily, voice steel now. "Stop it, Tom. It's not about him, it's us. Has been broken for years." The room went dead silent, his stare cracking with something raw, maybe regret. "After everything? You're throwing it away? For this?" Tears tracked her cheeks, but she stood tall. "For me. I can't pretend anymore." The quiet swallowed his bluster. His mouth worked soundlessly, denial flickering before he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shuddered, the bell jangling like shattered glass. She deflated then, a ragged breath escaping as she sank into the chair, tears flowing free. I moved careful, like approaching a spooked deer. "You okay?" "No, but yeah." I brewed chamomile, hands steady despite the adrenaline crash, and slid the mug her way before retreating to give her room. She stared into the steam, not running, just deciding. Minutes stretched, the rain drumming a steady beat. "I filed the papers today," she whispered finally. "Came here to say it out loud, to someone who gets it." I nodded, rag back in hand. That's the hard part over. A shaky sigh, and the tension uncoiled just a notch. The shop wrapped around us, warm mug and all, the echo of her choice reshaping the shadows. She didn't vanish after that storm. If anything, the fallout cleared the air, leaving room for something tentative and true. In the weeks that followed, her visits became less about escape and more about choice. Deliberate steps through my door, her smile carrying the weight of fresh starts. She crashed at her sister's place in Lake Oswego while the divorce papers churned through the system, a messy tangle of lawyers and divided assets that left her drained but determined. I'd spot her silhouette against the rain-streaked windows mid-afternoon, navy sweater traded for a soft plaid shirt, her auburn waves loose and catching the light like autumn leaves. One drizzly Tuesday, as I wrestled with a shipment of local author memoirs, Portland's literary scene always booming, she breezed in with 2 steaming cups from the roastery next door. "Black for you, splash of oat milk for me," she said, handing one over with that easy grin that had started to feel like home. We settled into the back nook, surrounded by walls of travelogues that whispered of roads not taken. Conversation meandered, her latest design project for a craft brewery label, my failed attempts at growing herbs on the fire escape upstairs. "Basil's the only survivor," I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. "Everything else wilts under my watch." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes in the quiet shop, her hand brushing mine as she reached for a napkin. The touch lingered, electric, and I didn't pull away. "You're better at nurturing stories than plants, Jordan. That's your gift." Her eyes held mine, soft and searching, and in that moment, the barriers we'd both built, mine from a marriage that fizzled in quiet resentment, hers from one that roared with neglect, seemed to crumble. No grand declarations, just the simple truth of 2 people seeing each other clear. As fall deepened into winter, our rhythm solidified. She'd help close up on slower nights, stacking chairs while I tallied sales, the radio crooning old Dylan tunes that made her hum along off-key. One evening, snow flurries dancing outside like confetti, she paused by the classics shelf, fingers tracing the spine of Pride and Prejudice. "Ever wonder if we're like Elizabeth and Darcy? All misunderstandings and slow burns?" I set down the ledger, heart tripping over itself. Minus the estates and fancy balls. "But yeah, maybe." She turned, stepping closer, the air between us charged with unspoken possibilities. "I'm ready for the next chapter if you are." I cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing her cheeks, and kissed her. Soft at first, then deeper, tasting peppermint and promise. It wasn't fireworks, it was warmth spreading like a favorite blanket, the kind that chases away the chill for good. We pulled back, foreheads touching, her breath mingling with mine. "Took us long enough," she whispered, eyes sparkling with that mix of vulnerability and joy I'd come to crave. Life wove us together from there, thread by thread. She moved into a cozy rental in Selwood, a bike ride away, and our dates blurred the lines between shop hours and stolen moments. Picnics at Tryon Creek with sandwiches from the deli, lazy Sundays browsing Powell's books downtown, her head on my shoulder as we lost ourselves in aisles of endless worlds. I introduced her to my ritual of midnight reads under the loft string lights. She dragged me to art walks, her designs gaining traction in local galleries, her confidence blooming like the cherry blossoms come spring. There were hiccups, of course, old wounds surfacing in quiet arguments, her ex's bitter texts that she'd delete with a sigh, my doubts whispering I was still just the bookstore guy. But we'd talk it out over mugs of tea, the same way we'd started, her hand in mine anchoring us. "We're not perfect," she'd say, tracing patterns on my palm. "But we're real. That's enough." And it was. The shop transformed, too. She revamped the window displays with her graphic flair, turning heads on Maple Street, drawing in crowds for poetry nights where she'd read her own verses, raw and heartfelt, about shedding skins and finding light. By summer's end, as we sat on the apartment's tiny balcony, watching the Willamette River gleam under fireworks from the Waterfront Blues Festival, she turned to me, eyes reflecting the bursts of color. "Remember that first night? I was a mess, running from everything." I nodded, arm around her shoulders. "And now?" She smiled, leaning in. "Now I'm running toward something. Toward you." We kissed as the sky lit up, the boom echoing our hearts, steady, synchronized. Looking back, that Thursday evening wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the page turn we'd both needed. In a world of fleeting swipes and surface chatter, we built something solid, page by page, in the quiet corners of a Portland bookstore. Heartfelt, messy, romantic, ours. And as I lock up each night now, her keychain jangling beside mine, I know. Sanctuaries aren't places. They're people who see your story and choose to stay in it.